Hello boys and girls, today's lesson is going to be on time telling to the nearest minute. I want to go over some of our objectives for today. The content objective is the student will read and write time to the nearest 1 minute increment using analog clocks. And our language objective is that you will utilize the clocks to read and or write the time. So before we begin our lesson, I wanted to go over some math vocabulary words that you should already know that we've been learning these past couple days. The first one is the analog clock. This is an analog clock, okay? And the shorthand here is called the hour hand, as you remember, and it's shorter, and the word hour is shorter, so that's a little tip for us to remember that that is the hour hand. Then we look at the longer one, and that is our minute hand. Again, the word minute is longer than hand, so it's a helpful tip or reminder that this is going to be our minute hand, which tells us the minutes. Here's our digital clock. This tells us the time digitally, which is just written out in numbers. Again, this two little dots here in the middle is called a colon. Okay, so the number or numbers, sometimes we have two-digit number here, that tells us the hour, okay? And the two numbers or the two-digit number behind or to the right of the colon tells us the minutes, okay? So now we're going to get started on learning how to tell time to the nearest 1 minute. So I look at this clock, and this is what's going on in my head. I'm thinking, gosh, this almost looks like 1:56 because I see that my hour hand is pointing to the 1, and this is a little bit past the 55-minute mark, so it's looking like 1:56. But then I also know that if it's 1:56, it should almost look like it's 2 o'clock. Does it look like the clock is pointing to the 2? If you said no, you're right, because it does not look like it's 2, so it can't be 1:56. So I'm looking at my hour hand, and I'm looking at it real closely, and I know that it's between the 1 and the 12. So if it's not quite on the 1 yet, it is still 12 o'clock, and now I need to go and count my minutes. So I start at the top, and I'm going to count by 5s, as you remember the other day we were practicing. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. And now, once I hit to the 55, I need to count by 1s. These little marks mean 1 minute, so 55, 56. So the real time is 12:56 because it is almost 1 o'clock. And if you really look at the clock, it does look like it's almost 1 o'clock. Now we're going to look at another example. To begin, I look at my hands and I figure out which one's my hour hand and which one's my minute hand. And again, the shorter one is my hour hand. So I know that it's between the 8 and between the 9. So, has my hour hand passed the 9 yet? If you said no, you're correct because it has not. It's still between the 8 and the 9, so it is 8 o'clock. And I'm going to put my 8 in my colon, and now I need to look at my minute hand. It's between the 2 and the 3. So really, I need to go back to the top and count how many minutes that is. By 5s, 5, 10, 15. So I know now that my minute hand is between 10 minutes and 15 minutes. So I start at the 10, and I'm going to count my little my little lines in between the 10 and the 15. So 10, 11, 12. So it is 8:12. Now we're going to look at one more example before we do some practice ones. So I'm looking at the clock, and I first need to figure out what numbers is my hour hand between and my minute hand. So I look at my hour because that tells me my hour hand, and that's going to tell me the hour, which is the first number I write, so it's between the 3 and the 4. And then I look, it has not passed the 4 yet, so it is still 3, put my colon, and now I look at my minutes. It's between the 6 and the 7. So to count my minutes, I start at the top and I count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So I know that my minute hand is between 30 minutes and 35 minutes. So I start in the 30 and then I count by 1s. 30, 31, 32, 33, and 33 it is. It is 3:33. Now I want to try some practice problems together. Okay, my mathematicians, we are going to practice some time-telling skills. So I'm going to come over here and hit the start button. Now a time is shown on my clock. This is my hour hand and this is my minute hand. I know that that's my hour hand because remember the hour word is shorter, so my hour hand is shorter. Now I'm going to first look at the hour hand because that's the first number that I need to write. So if I look over here, it is between the 9 and the 10. So it is still has not passed the 10 yet, so it is still 9 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and write my 9, my colon, and then I'm going to look at my minute hand. If I look at my minute hand, it is between the 3 and the 4. And if I count by 5s from the top, I know that this is 5, 10, 15, 20. So my minutes have to be between 15 and 20. So I'm going to start at the 15 and move slowly and count 15, 16, which is about where this minute hand is pointing to. So let's try that. 9, 16. Now let's check. That is correct. So now let's try the next one. It is pointing towards the 10. My hour hand is pointing towards the 10. It's between the 10 and the 11. And my minute hand is a little bit past the 1, so it's between the 1 and the 2. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to try to figure out the time. Okay, now let's see if you got your time correct. So, like I said before, my hour hand is between the 10 and the 11, so it is not past the 11 yet, so it is still 10 o'clock, so I'm going to write my 10 and my colon, and then I'm going to look at my minute hand. Again, I know that my minute hand is between 5 and 10 minutes, so I'm going to go to this 5 and then count by 1s. 5, 6. So, can I write 5, 6? No. The correct way to write 10 and 6 minutes, you need to put the 0 and then a 6. Okay? Now let's check. You got 10:06. You are correct. So now you have 2 correct. Great job, boys and girls. I'll see you tomorrow in class. I wanted to tell you one more thing, just as a reminder for you to always look where the two numbers are, where your hour hand is, between what two numbers your hour hand is and what two numbers your minute hands are, and that's going to help you decide whether or not it has passed a certain number. Okay? So don't forget to check what two numbers your hour and minute hands are between. Enjoy practicing. See you tomorrow in class.